Ethan, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Ethan Miller. I am a high school athletic director. I am a mental performance coach. I also teach classes in character and leadership, and have been in the business of education for 16 years, and also that of being a mental performance coach for the past 2 years, where I work with one-on-one athletes, where I work with teams and from the collegiate to the high school, and also athletes at the professional level, on controlling the 6 inches that are most important in their life, and that is the 6 inches between their ears. So I've been so for my background is high school wise, I grew up in Humboldt, Iowa, town about 5,000 people, played 4 sports, and had a great high school experience. I had an opportunity to be involved with so many different people that were influential in my life, that allowed me to then invest in me and to help me become the person I am today. After high school, went to Northwestern College in Orange City, Iowa, and played baseball there, where I had the opportunity to compete for some great coaches and play with some great teammates, where I made All-American my junior year, and then also has recently been inducted into the Northwestern College Athletic Hall of Fame in 2013. After that, I got a job at North Central Community School District in Manly, Iowa in 2004, and was teaching high school physical education, also head baseball coach and assistant football coach, where I held that position for 7 years. And then after our schools consolidated with the neighboring district, I was then able to then continue my role as head baseball coach, assistant football coach, and then I eventually transitioned to do the athletic director position. And from there, I was head baseball coach. I have been for the past 15 years, in which I recently resigned after this past season in order to focus in on this next path of my life, has been to live my life's mission and to positively impact and influence the lives of those in which I serve, and to then give them an experience that I needed as a high school and collegiate athlete, where I battled with perfectionism. I worked my tail off. I was one of the hardest working, successful, but also mentally challenged athletes there was. I was the one that was going to continue to chase points. I was going to chase batting average. I was going to chase stats, and was a big believer in comparisons, where as an athlete, I would measure what I did versus against what other people did. And a good performance in athletic competition was almost a relief versus that of a celebration. And if I played well, I want to be seen by everybody. I want everyone to see me and tell me how great I did. And if also I was one that did not do well, I was going to hide, and then I was like the kid in Benchwarmers who's hiding in the closet, eating sunscreen, and shying myself away from the world, because I hung my performance based upon my own personal ego and belief. And so the work that I do now is allowing people to then bridge that gap from where they are to where they want to be. And it's a perception, it's a lens in which we look through, allowing them to then become that best version of themselves, knowing that that has no finish line, and that all we can do is give our best effort and give our best strategy to implement in daily life to then become that person that we're destined to become.
Ethan, who are some of your biggest influences growing up from a leadership development standpoint, and why?
So at my high school, at Humboldt High School, my high school football coach, Dan McClanahan, who passed away back about 6 years ago, he was a person for me that was one that allowed me to then focus on those things that, again, he taught me about controlling what I can't control, taught me about being the person I was, destined to become. And he always used to tell us, much like your parents would tell you things, that you often repeat and make fun of and laugh at holiday events. But my high school football coach used to always say, gentlemen, if you always tell the truth, you never have to get your story straight. And we always would be like, yeah. But then when he passed away, many of us would tell those same exact stories. And that's the impact that he had made upon us. He introduced me to visualization and mental imagery before it was actually a thing. Back in, I graduated high school at Humboldt in 1999. And this is something that was very, very taboo. And within the mindset and development of individuals, there's something that was like, well, you know what? Yeah, you're kind of born mentally tough. Either you are or you aren't. And so he was a huge impact for me. When I went to Northwestern College, had the opportunity to be around incredible human beings within that of Dave Nonemacher, who was my college baseball coach for the first 2 years. Got introduced to my best friend in a long time, accountability partner, Matt McCarty, who has been on this podcast, who had the opportunity to work with his staff and his team at Northwestern College football. And then also so many people within the football, basketball, baseball. And that's a beautiful thing about small college, that you get the opportunity to intertwine and intermingle with guys that have, at the Division I level, you probably, Division II level, you're not going to see that, where the coaches in their offices are all around each other all the time. And from there, we have the chance to then talk and work with different athletes and develop those great relationships and friendships. And then also then the teachers that I had within my physical education and health major that really taught me about servant leadership, that taught me that it's not about you. And as a young person, I was very, very ego driven. And I mentioned earlier, is the personalization of performance that's one of the greatest sort of deficiencies that we have as individuals, that we hang our self-worth based upon our performance and what is it we do. Would it be a stat line, would it be a salary, would it be a title or something that we have a position within our business organization, is that we're more than that. Right. And that sports and coaching and all that it's what we do. It's not who we are. But the challenging part, even today, especially so many athletes and coaches who are having to have been rerouted and detoured, whether they didn't want to or not, as what's going on in the world today is, sports are not, it's what you do, but it's not who you are. But at the same time is that who you are is as a result of your experience within sports and that within people. And so to try to take a step back and see that from the 10,000 foot view and say, you know what, this is often bigger. And we have an opportunity as coaches, we have an opportunity as as teammates to really target the person before the player. And to say to them, your well-being and who you are matters way more than any specific stat line, than any specific team that you're on, first team, second team, bench, scout team, whatever it may be, is that everybody matters within the program. Everybody matters that your life comes in contact with. And then my greatest mentor that I have is Brian Kane, who is, in my opinion, the top mental performance and leadership coach that there is. He kind of took me under his wing 6 years ago and lit a fire that was already burning, but he threw jet fuel on top of it. It's how good can you be? He challenged me. We co-authored a book together titled The Mental Game of Athletic Administration. And from there, we have developed a really cool relationship. And then with his business, as far as who he works with, the top UFC fighters, top Division I athletic programs, and that he's really taken me underneath his wing a little bit and showed me the strategies, because he can't be everywhere, and that he's allowed me to then give what it is that he has learned throughout the course of his 20 years in the field of applied sports psychology. And I've guys never taken a single sports psychology class my entire life, is actually how to relate to the athletes, what they're dealing with, because I was in that specific position. I was a guy that battled, again, perfectionism, comparisons, didn't know how to live in the present moment as best as possible. So, and then also the people I've had a chance to work with in the field over the past couple of years within the teams and the coaches. And it's been an honor to see these people who are service-minded, who are humble, who want to provide the best service to their individual athletes, who no pride, no ego, just growth. Let's get better. Let's improve. And that just gets me fired up and jacked up more than else.
Ethan, Brian and I are both high school coaches, and you're a high school athletic director. How big of an issue is mental performance and leadership in today's athletic programs, especially at the high school level? I mean, that's a lot of our kids need. The first things that you've said in the first 10 minutes here are things that Brian and I are probably both instantly running guys through our head who need to hear this message, need to hear exactly what you just said. How big of an issue is this in today's athletic programs, and why is it the way it is?
It's the missing link. The missing link. It's clear cut. I mean, the reality and the data behind mental health within our young people today is staggering. 1 in 5 of our student athletes are going to suffer from some form of mental we could call it disability in the course of their year, whether it be anxiety or depression, and some that swing dependent upon situations, dependent upon circumstances. And, anxiety is obsession with the future. Depression is obsession with the past. And so what we've got to be able to do is allow these individuals to be focused on what matters most, and that is the present moment, to be where their feet are, to execute this play, this rep, this moment at a time. And too often is that we have athletes from the football perspective and working with some of the, Division I football players and guys who are All-Americans at the, NAIA Division II level, top recruits in the country that are still in high school, is how can they best immerse themselves in the present? Because the past is history, the future is a mystery, today is a gift, so why it's called the present. And we've got to be so immersed in the right here, right now. We cannot be in the third quarter as a quarterback and upset about our completion percentage in a throw that we missed in the first quarter that would have led to a 6. We've got to be able to not focus on that missed tackle in the second quarter, and to be present with and trusting our routines and trusting our process, which allows us to get to what we need to do right here, right now. And so that is what's important about the mindset, is that there are so many things that takes place that we have got to latch ourselves into. And that motivation literally is about 10% of what is I do. And that, yeah, it's fun. I can get, college guys or anybody like that to break karate boards to their head and eat fire and do all sorts of really cool stuff to get them jacked up. However, motivation is what gets you started. Commitment is what keeps you going. When it's 4th and 1 and you got to make a play, you got to make that block, you need to do your job, that YouTube video or that song is not going to be in your head. It's going to be what's taken place in the past, or what you're focusing on in the future, allow you to then hone it into right here, right now. In the game of football, one of the recent studies I saw was that, in an NFL football game, the entire length of time of a football game as far as action is from 7 to 9 minutes. Yet a game lasts about 4 hours. High school wise, would be, we've got 12-minute quarters and the halftime, where, and then also if there's a running clock, continuous clock. But where the mental game lies is after the whistle's blown. And how then do we redirect to get back in what matters most, and is this play? Whether it be an offensive series, we're trying to lock in on 75 to 100 snaps. Defense trying to limit to 75 or less. And they might see, hey, there's 3 to 4 key plays that take place in a game that are continued to be these are big plays, but we don't know what those plays are. So we've got to be ready for every single play with the right focus and with the right mindset, because we do not have to be great at every snap, just this one. And how to then get this right so they can then execute in the best way humanly possible, release, refocus, and then get to the next play. Okay. And so there are 4 myths that we talk about when I teach this about regarding mindset. Number 1 is people are born mentally tough. They either have or they don't. Well, if you open up any sort of Facebook feed about a recent birth of a child, oh my gosh, look at, baby James. Oh, he's beautiful. He's incredible. He's just so healthy, but he's mentally weak, and we're going to have to deal with that. Now, you're either trained or untrained. Yes, your environment can help, frame you into the person you are today. Yes, your external sort of influences, but it's about training. And that it makes no difference. Take Roger Bannister, who, when he broke the 4-minute mile barrier, it was thought that his brain, his eyes were going to explode, his heart was going to explode. And when he crossed the finish line, everybody looked at him and he just walked off with hard breathing, ooh, wait a minute. Maybe there's something we were missing here. Well, because we have this belief system, that self-limiting belief that we don't have what it takes. And so we're not born mentally tough. We are trained or untrained. The second thing is mental toughness is developed by working harder than the competition. Now, we can be working really hard, which a lot of people do. But if you're not working hard at the right things, you're just getting worse faster. Just because you're rocking your tail off in a rocking chair doesn't mean you're making any progress. And this is a mistake that I made as an athlete. And a lot of the athletes I work with is they just train. It's all about the physical. If you ask if coaches were to ask their athletes what percentage of their sport they believe to be mental, it is staggering amount that they say is mental. it is going to be highly above 60% or more. And from there, what they're able to do is then say, okay, well, if my athletes believe that 70 to 80% or at least 60 plus is mental, how much of that is being invested into then training the mind? So what we do is we focus on the X and O's, focus on the physical and what they need to do. If a kid doesn't show up for weights because he's mentally weak, well, there might be a lot more things in play than that. Third thing is nothing I can do to speed the process of developing mental toughness. Well, you can do so by then investing in the right sort of focus and study within that. And there's not enough time in the day to implement a mental performance program. Is mental performance, I want you to think about this. With mental performance is, it's not just another thing to add to your plate. Think about this. What if the mindset and mental performance of your kids and athletes, and even that of your coaches, what if that is the plate? What if that is the foundation on which everything is built? And from there, we can add the physical component of like strength and conditioning. We can add then the scheme that we're trying to implement. We're trying to then, hey, here's your reads, here's your sort of keys, and we just keep building on top of that, plus the academic side, plus our social emotional side. What if the mental component is the plate in which everything is added? And so we've got to be able to then lock in on what it is that we can control and do what matters most, and how to train and develop that space that's in between their ears.
All right, Ethan, so how do we get student athletes now to invest in this mental performance, whether it be through leadership or just through mental performance development? How do we make sure that those kids see how worthwhile this mental performance commitment could be for them?
Well, every single person has a gap where they are and a gap to where the person they want to become. And so that gap is about a strategy that might be just one away. We might just be one specific strategy or thought that's going to allow them to bridge that gap. And I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to work with Kyler Murray at the University of Oklahoma, who was playing baseball when I was there with Brian Cain. And Kyler Murray had a gap, and he ends up being a first-round draft pick and the Heisman Trophy winner and number 1 overall draft pick in the NFL. And his deal was like, he's not very vocal. And this guy was the most incredible human being that you've ever had a chance to talk with. But he's like, I'm just not very vocal, just kind of do my thing. But it's not as far as like him being the rah-rah, jump on top of the table guy, but it's more of his, when he speaks, people are to listen because it mattered. And everybody, it's about, every athlete is an actor on a stage. And when it comes down to then how to get an athlete to buy in, it's so much better when the coaches are the ones that are driving this. Because from the athlete side is they're going to then, again, take on the behaviors and take on the mindset of the coach that's leading them. And so as coaches, it's important to be at the forefront. I think at the high school level, it's really easy for coaches to get caught into, well, the players that come into our program, they are labeled this or this, and I'm going to just take what I can to do with them. You get to the collegiate or high school level, these coaches are more dependent upon, like, I got to find that edge. I got to find that next piece because my job depends on it. If I don't recruit the right kids for our program and get them in and develop them the way we need to, my job is on the line. And so within high school coach, challenge is this, is that to take on the law of that, or the rule of the lettuce farmer. If a lettuce, sort of crop doesn't produce, blame the lettuce and say, well, the lettuce sucks. It's just not that. Yes, we know there's some kids that, have a lot of different things in their life that are just going to not allow them to then get to where they need to be. And we understand that. We just got to meet them where they're at. We're going to love them. We're going to care for them, provide a great experience, because not everybody goes out for a sport that is going to then try to get a college scholarship. That's not going to try to then make all-state status. It's not even trying to make all-district or all-conference status. They're there for a very different reason. But also within that, the lettuce farmers, we don't just blame the lettuce and say it sucks. We say, hey, you know what? Let's look at the pH level. Let's look at the precipitation. Let's look at the humidity. Let's look at all these different factors and say, you know what? Maybe this is why this didn't produce the way it needed to. And so that's about being humble. That's about being driven by purpose and service, and understand what your individual life's mission is. And so when you think of like, that of the coach is, if you think about the FedEx truck, and there's the FedEx logo, and there are people that are going to be listening to this podcast, that I challenge you, the next time that you see a FedEx logo, and as you maybe listen to this who's driving, you're going to be passing by a truck with that specific logo. And Can you see the arrow that is inside the FedEx logo? Well, if you're like, I'm not quite sure where that's at. Well, if you look between the E and the X of FedEx, there's an arrow. And so then when you see that, you then cannot unsee it. And then there's two things that happen. One, you realize that there are arrows inside of me. There's arrows that are inside my players that I've got to allow them to then see and to then build and structure practice, build and structure training that's going to allow them to see those specific arrows. And number two, you're going to think of me, you're going to think of this podcast, and it's a win-win for everybody that's also involved, right? And so when it comes down to mindset and mental performance training is that there's 4 stages of buy-in. One, it's not for me. Yeah, I understand I should take a breath, maybe pre-snap. Yes, I should lock into my mindset as far as being elite and recognizing that this is the only moment that matters, be where my feet are. It's not for me. Stage 2, you recognize that it's for others. Yeah, I see other people doing this. I see other people clapping their hands, tapping their helmet and refocusing on the next play, wiping their hands off in their towel, and just focus on the top right of the goalpost to allow it to bring presence back, having them talk about, hey, so what, next play? It's for others. Stage 3, I'll try it. I'll give it a shot. I'll do my best to implement a performance routine that happens either before practice, in practice, post-practice. So when I put my uniform on, as far as developing my routine, I'm transitioning from Clark Kent into Superman. And that when I'm a student athlete and I'm walking into the practice facility, I'm going to shed off my clothes and fold them up with purpose and intention. And as I put them inside my locker, I'm going to say, my personal student problems and issues are going to stay here and remain. But then once I put on my uniform, I'm taking on a different persona. I'm then transitioning from Clark Kent into Superman. I'm gonna go out there and attack and be purpose-driven, be action-based, and focus on my function versus my feelings, no matter what happens in my life. But then after practice happens, I'm then going to then shed that specific part of my life, put back on my clothes of a student athlete, and then take those issues back on. I'll give it a try. Stage 4, how did I do this any other way? How did I think that I could separate the two when in fact, they're just different personas? There's different parts of my life where focus goes, energy flows. And when I focus on the right things, it gives me a greater chance to get the results and the outcome that matters the most.
How does someone practice the mental performance? Because we talked about, if you create your plate, and we have coaches that will create this environment, right? So you have this environment, I'm buying into this, we're going to do this. We're not going to be product-based. We're going to be process-based. How do you then take that mindset and begin to practice it?
So, and that's one of the, the myths of hey, it's just another thing on my plate, where within mental performance, it's not a practice as much as a lifestyle, and that it is a lifestyle, not an event. And it's something that you make a part of your everyday life. And so it is about a system and how you create systems in your everyday life, from when you wake up at the AM to what you're doing as far as your execution for waking up, and making your bed, hydrating, eating real food for breakfast, what you read, and then what you do as far as planning your day from waking up to when you go to bed, and that everything that you do is going to be beneficial for those people that you serve, because it's not about you. And it's a service mindset. Is that, Mark Twain said it best. One of my favorite quotes of all time is that the most important day of your life is 1, the day you're born, and 2, the day you understand why. And that all of us got into coaching and got into, teaching, education, where it may be, for a very, very specific reason. And yes, because we love the sport, but more than that, we love people. And so when it comes down to then what we do is that, it's, speaker versus system, and to get people to understand that it is a system that you have in place. And a system is about save yourself stress, time, energy, and motivation. And that the system that is in place is then going to allow you to then develop a process. Well, process is something in athletics we hear about all the time. Trust the process, the process is this. Well, if we can't describe what a process is, then we don't have one. It doesn't mean it's bad, but okay, what is our process for teaching focus and awareness? What's our process for teaching mental imagery and visualization? What is our process for leadership? And what is going to be, is it something that we're just checking off the box, or something that we're very, very, very intentional about? And so when you start thinking about what is it that, how we implement that, is that it's something you do, or is it more that what you become? And mental performance takes over every aspect of your life. It's your relationships. It's how you communicate. It's how you carry yourself. It is being aware of your body language. Is being aware of where your focus is. It's your self-talk. And there are specific strategies that you can then implement in your daily life. Because when it comes down to this, is that the mindset of our athletes is the greatest source of frustration amongst all coaches. And we then label people. And I've done this as a coach myself as well. I mean, I was very, very ego-driven until you know better. And then when I started peeling back more and more and more as far as what the potentials and possibilities are for what we can do with our athletes, it became less about than what they do, because any gap that happens in a person's everyday life is going to show up in the field. You know, when you're just physically better than somebody else, you can get away with it. But when it's good on good, and when, you know, stakes are high and pressure's up, is that how can we then be at our best when it matters the most? Because when stuff starts hitting the fan, that's when we need this. And within even our world today, that how many athletes that I've had to deal with and had the pleasure of working with who've had their seasons cut short, not just at the high school level, but also that of the collegiate level, who are collegiate seniors, who now are going, well, yeah, I might get my 5th year of eligibility as a softball player or a golfer, but I have to go through my another school year just to get to that, or the unknowns of what is going to happen within the season of a high school athlete. And so that is where this matters the most. And it gives you something to go to. It gives you something then to latch onto, because there's so many people, even in our world today, that feel like they're falling down a hill. And they're trying to grab onto something that's going to keep them from falling off the cliff. Well, the mindset, the mental performance, the strategies and systems that we have in place are then going to allow them, when they grab on that root system, is going to be steadfast. It's going to be deep. It's going to allow them to pull themselves up and move themselves back up to the top of the hill. So what I do is that I don't focus with any of the teams I work with is on the X's and O's. That's not for me. It would be a volleyball team, a basketball team, a softball team, a football team. The X's and O's are for the coaches. I am there as a support system to them to focus on how to get their minds right, and how then to teach and give them strategies to maximize practice, to maximize timeouts, to maximize pregame, to maximize halftime, to that every single part of what we do is efficient and is embedded in what's happening. So it's not this rah-rah, sis-boom-ba sort of approach. It is, okay, when we break and then we have a timeout and we have that's on the field and our D coordinators running on the field, how can we organize our huddle to be as effective and efficient as humanly possible so that they can get the message across, to get these guys to dial in after they've gotten their drinks, to make sure that we use timeout better than anybody else. When we have their 15 minutes of halftime, how can we then structure and break down halftime to where they're going to then use halftime better than anybody else that we're up against? And so that is what this is essentially all about, is to allow them to go beyond X's and O's, to focus on what's happening within the athletes, to relay within the coaches. And the best approach is me coaching the coaches, so that when their voice is being spoken to the athletes, it is going to be reflected upon what our mission and purpose is, as providing and creating champions of character to succeed for life on and off the field.
A lot of coaches who are going to listen to this podcast are inheriting programs that are probably in rougher shape than they would like them to be. And so many of them are looking for that golden ticket that's going to help them transform a downtrodden program. So what would you say to those coaches who are looking at mental performance as being that key that's going to help them produce individuals who are able to help them transform their culture and their program?
Yeah, no doubt. And there are a lot of guys who be listening to this that, hey, you know, within my own individual coaching journey, as in baseball, I had a program that was it was downtrodden, but we had great people involved. And you just have to train them appropriately and recognize that mental performance is not a magic pill. It is not this, it's not wizardry. It's not, you know, Jedi mind tricks. it is something that's going to then give them something to go to and give you something as a coach as far as where our focus is, because we have to start measuring things in an entirely different way. And our process that we go step by step by step along the way is something that is going to be towards the initial target as far as we want to do. And so we have these telescope goals, and then we have these microscope goals. Microscope, what do you do right now, right here? Telescope, where is I'm going? And sometimes it's really hard. And when I say it's not a magic pill, it takes time. And the more you invest into the work, the more you realize that there's more that can be done as far as creating those individuals, and better people create better players. And football is just the medium and just the avenue for us to then impact the lives of others. Because again, football and coaching is what we do. It's not who we are. And that we have got to create men and create individuals. We've got to impact our managers. We've got to impact our trainers. We're going to carry much more important labels as husband, father, wife, spouse, employee, to be a positive member of their communities so they can continue to then make an impact. And so within mental performance, it's one, going to allow you to compete better in the present moment where it matters most. All the action that needs to happen in life and where the magic is right here in the present where our feet are. And that when talent is equal, your mindset is a separating factor. It's how we take on adversities, how we take on obstacles, it's how we take on challenges, and the framework that we will look at it. When adversity strikes, that is going to be the test. When we see obstacles, when others see obstacles, we see opportunities. The challenges that we have are going to allow us to then become champions. And that it allows us also then to the framework to compensate and adjust. Because we can't predict the events that happen in our life. Many of us have heard the math problem, E plus R equals O. The events in our life with our response is then going to equal our outcome. And we've got to learn how to respond appropriately by controlling what we can control. We can't control officials. We can't control the other team. We can't control the weather. We can't control the field conditions. We can control, though, the focus and awareness and discipline that we have in the moment to go and execute one snap at a time. And if we do that, the results are going to take care of itself. If we're so focused that we're not going out there and trying to win a game, no. We're just going out here and trying to win this snap. And if we win this snap, good. Next snap, refocus. Let's go with the next one. So what? We had success? Awesome. Next snap, next play. Let's go get it. So that then in the end, rule of compound effect, everything adds up over time, then we're going to get ourselves closer to the end result. But the more we focus on outcome, the less outcome we actually get. We're focused on our process, our preparation, our planning, our routines, what we do in this moment where our feet are. Let's give us the greatest chance then to go out and get it that we need to do.
Ethan, I want to transition the conversation just a little bit from what you do to really who you are. What future goals do you have, and what are some of the personal goals that you'd like to accomplish as a mental performance coach and a leader?
And the reason I'm so passionate about this is because this is something, again, that I needed. And I was a guy that would beat myself up. I would tear myself up. If a game was good, I would celebrate it for a split second until I started worrying about the next one. If it was something that was a poor performance, I'm going to relive it over and over again in my mind. And I recognize that, within that perfectionism, there are a lot of our athletes that have that. And when we start seeing, we talk within where a person is mentally, emotionally, is we use signal lights. We have red lights, yellow lights, green lights. Green lights, I am in control. All's good. I go out and play, do my thing. It's fine. And when yellow lights, I feel myself kind of teetering. Well, I feel like I might be losing control, but I'm still pretty good. Red lights, I've lost it. I've lost control. And when we are then in red lights, we become three types of people. We become prayerful, whereas like, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, don't hit the ball my way. Don't have the ball come my way. Don't have anything happen that I need to step up because, oh, please, let's make this happen. We become, we have prayerful. Also, we become perfect, whereas we're trying to then like, okay, everything's fine. We're all good. It's no problem. Just keep doing what I'm supposed to do. And we're on edge that way, or we become primal, where we get angry, we get ticked off, we start operating and our fuse is completely blown. And anger is a legitimate emotion. However, when we start experiencing anger, if we were to put the letter D in front of that, then we have danger. And so for allowing then the experience that I've had is fuels my fire to then give this to then athletes so they can have an experience that they are proud of, and to recognize that there's also a level of focus and there's a level of perspective to have with what they do. And that what we learn from sports, what we learn from coaching, what we learn from relationships is we get so much more from that. And it's a part of our life, it's a part of our being. And that's really hard then to separate that. And so for me, is if I can continue to empower coaches, to empower athletes, to empower those to see it through the right lens, and to then execute one snap, one pitch, one possession, one race, one blank at a time, so I can live my mission as far as making a positive impact and influence the lives of those I serve. I'm in a position of service. At times I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants and those people that have come before me to allow me to become the person I am today. And I owe that to others. And that's why many of these guys are listening to this podcast looking for that edge. They're looking for that next piece as far as how can they deepen their impact. I'm telling you, when you can target the heart, when you can target the mind, you're then going to unlock and unleash a different sort of beast. And that we hear the word elite, we hear this, that's thrown around with a lot of travel sports and teams, but there's an elite level that happens, and it's as a result of the behaviors. And people experience our beliefs through our behaviors. And when we are showing that and our beliefs and behaviors are in alignment, that's a win. We're okay with that. And if we can show up every single game, every single practice, and give all we have, no matter what is we have, because not every day we're going to feel 100%. I mean, it's not, hey, I'm good or bad. It's good and bad. It's just a matter to focus in on. And hey, if I'm feeling 60% today, hey, baby, let's go to battle to that 60% and give every single thing that you have. Because at the end of it all, when we walk away, we can be proud of that and say, hey, pre-game, I lock in, post-game, I let go, and then refocus on the next opportunity. And so it is an honor, privilege for every single team and every single athlete that I get the chance to serve, and to see them excel in ways that I was not able to as an athlete is why I feel that that was the most important day, the second most important day, like Mark Twain talked about, was born. And when I see the athletes I get the opportunity to work with and serve experience that, to me, baby, that's a high you can't buy. And that is something that continues to fuel me and drive me and allow me to provide something that's very, very unique as a result of the service to other people.
Oh, Ethan, you're also an author of 2 books, the 6 Keys to Leading with Intention and Living a Life of Purpose. So give our listeners just a little brief overview about what went into your purpose behind writing these books, and then what our listeners can expect if they were to go pick them up themselves.
This started with Brian Cain, and he was training for a full Ironman. And I'll tell you this, listeners, that be careful what you say no to or what you say you can't do, because there is a door of opportunity that you never know could lead you down. And so I was in Las Vegas with Brian for an AD convention. He was training for a full Ironman, and him and his director of operations needed to get a 16-mile trial or training run in. And so we just got done playing blackjack until about 2:00 in the morning, closed it down as we were staying at Bally's. And the next morning we took an Uber to a park in the middle of Las Vegas that was about a half mile in circle, and we ran that for 3 some hours. And the first that I ran in my life was 10 miles at that point in time. Him and I ran these 16 miles. I had a conference leadership summit to speak to, and we were going back and forth as far as what this was going to look like. He gives some suggestions. I give some suggestions back and forth. That's too much. That sounds like you. I need this to make it sound like me. And then at the end, we came down with then the 6 keys to leading with intention, which key number 1 is make today count. Key number 2, function over feeling. Key number 3, principles over preference. Key number 4, you become your habits. Key number 5, bring the energy. And key number 6, 2 + 2 = 5, which is not a screwed up math problem. You have to read the book to figure it out, but it's about synergy. And so we started this study. He said, you need to write a book on this. So he connected me with his his editor, and then his we went from there, and it launched. We've sold over 2,500 copies. It's in a bunch of different schools and also athletic programs as far as their leadership training and development programming. And then I, give keynotes upon that within different school districts and organizations, now to then strengthen their actions and functions, and how to then train the behaviors. And then from that, it was a follow-up to the Living a Life of Purpose. And then the third book in the series will be launched in fall of 2020. So start with the 6 keys, move into then Living a Life of Purpose. And then from there, you have to wait until fall 2020 to get the final installation of that.